If your man is nice to you, don't tell your friends about it. The enemy of a woman is another woman. Be careful.
I would like to share with you a true story that actually demonstrates how very, very accurate the statement you just listened to this young lady say is. And I tell you this true story because I know the particular individuals that I'm going to describe in this story, and because I have seen the damage that came upon this woman who I'm going to describe as a result of her not taking the advice or not acting in line with what this young lady has said here. And so I want to use this story that I'm going to share, this true story, to offer advice to any other young woman, any other woman, not even a young woman, just any woman who may be battling with herself about how to deal with her friendships in relation to how she behaves towards her partner and what she shares with her friends. And when I tell this story, I'm going to end by giving you a contrasting story of another woman, a much older woman compared to the woman I'm going to describe as the case study, who in her own case practiced what this young lady has recommended and formed a habit of keeping her friends, whichever friends she might have, at a considerable distance from her home, and as a result from her partner, and as a result has been able to keep her family and her marriage intact without anybody being able to even rock it. If anything, it's just been between her and her partner. It's been amazing to do a comparison of these two women, separated by more than 35 years in age. But believe me, it is clear to me, and it will be clear to you when you finish listening to the story, that there is wisdom, great wisdom in this message that this young lady passed within a few seconds. So let's go ahead with the story. There's this woman, young lady. She got married in her early 20s. He had a first child. There was some drama that occurred between her and her partner before they eventually settled down. But eventually she settled down. They got married and they were living. However, she had a sister, an older sister, who had told the partner that, oh, this is my sister you want to marry. Well, she has all these qualities, she's wonderful, but I want to warn you, be careful with her, because when going gets rough, she might be like this, she might be like that. And the man said, don't worry, I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. She's going to be my wife, blah blah blah. So they let it go at that. This man did not have any idea that there was more to this thing that the older sister tried to do than that. So fast forward a few years later, when they were now settled in, they were living together, this older sister came around and said, they stayed over for the night. The man came home, in the evening from work, and said hello to her and all that, greeted them, had a chat, and left. His wife, the woman who is the star of this story, the young lady, at that time, was entertaining her older sister. So he left the next day to go to work. By the time he returned that night, he found out there was a change in the behavior of his spouse. He did not understand. He tried to talk to her. He saw that she was rather stiff and cold towards him. He couldn't understand. They had a conversation. She quickly turned it into an argument and began to complain about all sorts of things. It was very odd because she hadn't been like that at all before then. It was just a sudden change in behavior. He did some thinking and told himself, the only thing that has changed is that the older sister stopped over last night. So why is she behaving like this? He shook it off and left it at that. That went, some years, they moved forward some years later, he decided to go into a new job, and oh, by the way, I've changed a few things in the story, so it's not exactly going to be exactly the way it actually happened. I'm going to move dates and all that, if at all I mention dates. So he moved to a new job that required him to kind of like start afresh. It was a new area of work, and there was a struggle initially. when he moved to this new job, he tried to get her to do something of her own, but they weren't successful. She wasn't keen to do anything. Fast forward some years later, he found that there was a period when things were really tough. He lost his job, and so things became very rough. And because she didn't really have anything of her own doing, things were tough for the family. The kids, taking care of the kids, you can imagine. So it was very bad. But he kept going. He kept telling her to believe with him and in him. She didn't do much of that. She was actually very argumentative, became very critical of him. She used to be very quiet and good-natured. Suddenly everything just changed. And then he began to recall what the sister had told him, that she was not the way he thought she was and all that. And he began thinking, what's up with this lady? How come I didn't see all of this in her before? But they went on. But suddenly, at some point, he found that she became very aggressive, even to the point of hitting him and even physically attacking him. No matter what he tried to tell her, it's like she made up her mind. Then she began to make statements like, well, they told me this, they told me that, they told me people like you do this, told me. And he started asking her, who told you this? Who told you? What are you talking about? And he would respond, shut up, you think you are clever. They've always said that people like you do this, do that, men like you behave like this, behave like that. And he just wondered, because he never saw anybody coming to visit at that time, until when they moved to this new job and he moved to a different area. So she began to have some friends. But you also noticed that she used to mention that she had some relatives who lived abroad. And this is where the issue of how Nigerian women behave towards their partners comes in abroad now. So he said, you remember that she would tell him things whenever they have arguments, because at the point, like I said, she began to get a bit aggressive physically and abusive verbally and all that. And she would tell him, you are lucky we're not in the UK. I would have called the police and told them that you were beating me and all that. And he would say, why would you do that? I haven't laid a hand on you. You have been the one that's actually been aggressive and violent. And he would say, you don't know anything. I'll get people to say this, I'll get people to say that. And he wondered where all that was coming from. So it went on, things went on like that. Now, eventually, it turned out that she had gotten herself into a circle of friends, and she also had these relatives who were single. These were all single women. There's something Kevin Samuel, the late Kevin Samuel, God bless his soul, used to say, that single women always want to keep other women single. So if you have a single woman as a friend, and if it's a friend that you consider you're allowed to be an influential person in your life, it is very likely, as a woman, that single woman who is your friend is likely to make you at some point jeopardize the relationship you have, and you're going to mess up your relationship you have. Many times single women, they move in ways that encourages their married friends to also break up, because they put ideas into their heads that kind of contaminate the relationship those ones have with their partners, and they do it subliminally. So it's not exactly that they come and tell you, I'm going to help you destroy your marriage. They don't do that. It's the kind of suggestions they make to their friends during conversations. So one of the things that happens is, when you are apparently happy with your partner and you begin to have friends, or you have friends and keep friends that are single, especially the ones that have broken up from their own marriages, maybe divorced or separated or whatever, those kinds of women, the minute they are with you and you are talking about how good your own marriage is, your own relationship is, it doesn't matter how much they express happiness for you, very often there's jealousy and envy hiding just beneath the surface, but they won't show it, you won't see it. So you need to just be sensitive to the fact that you have to keep your mouth shut. But let's go on. So it became clear. He began to think about it. Then he remembered that whenever she got angry, she would make statements, more and more statements like, this one chance I got myself into, oh, I'm the one that made a mistake. They warned me. They said I should have stayed with this other person. I should have stayed with this other. and then she will make phone calls to his hearing and be talking to somebody at the other end, talking about him to the person on the phone. So you get on and on and on, and this man looked at himself and said, how long am I going to keep this up? And he looked at the kids and he said, these children are going to grow up, listening to all this conflict every day, these arguments, this fight. So he got to a point where he decided that, you know what, I've had enough. It's clear to me that this woman is not going to stop this thing. It's also clear to me she has people who are encouraging her to be this way, to adopt this disagreeable disposition. So I need peace in my life. And if you're listening to me and you go and find out, any man, if there's one thing men want the most, it's the respect and peace of mind. The man wants to be respected. It's not about you worshiping him, it's about you giving him respect, treating him with respect, not disrespecting him verbally or otherwise, and also giving him peace of mind in his home. If he cannot have those two things, it is very unlikely that man can stay with you. If he stays with you, then he's probably a weak version of a man, and those ones are exceptions, they're not the norm. The man who is a real man will never settle for a life like that. So this man decided that, you know what, I'm moving on. So he walked out of the relationship, rented a different apartment, began to live alone, left her with the kids, but he made a point of fulfilling his obligations to her. He didn't bother to take her to court or anything. He didn't debate custody of the kids. He just left her, moved on. He didn't even get married to somebody else. Now, years down the line, this lady found that even her friends that used to come around before, they were the ones also spreading the news about the fact that her husband had left her. They were actually mocking her. She actually ran into some of them, people that did not know she knew them. They were talking about her to those people, and so she found out actually that they had always been jealous and envious. By then it was too late. Now I tell the story like this because, as I said, I want to remove the stories are very similar, to be honest with you. I'm sure you must have had some variants of a story like this. The woman who allowed her bad friends to help her break her home, the home breakers. Sometimes they are the one that push you to fight your spouse, and then they go behind your back and date your spouse, and then you find out they're getting married to your spouse. How many times have we heard that story? You see, they encourage you to talk bad about your spouse. They push you and push you and push you to be discontented, while they go behind you because they've always valued a man like that. They know he's doing everything for you. Then they get hooked up. How many times have we seen stories like that on the web? So this one, you see, because this young woman has said these words of wisdom, is talking from a place of knowledge and a place of wisdom, because we've seen this play out many times, yet women do not listen. If a man is going to cheat, he's not with another woman except he's homosexual. If a man is going to cheat and dump you and whatever, kind of betray you, isn't it with another woman? Now that woman will know that this man is with you and yet chooses to go ahead and have a relationship with him. Why doesn't that woman act like a decent fellow woman and tell the man, no, it is wrong of you to do this with me because you already have a woman in your life? Why would you want to disrespect that woman? If that shows that you're not a good man, because if you come to me under these conditions, that means that you'll also do the same thing to me at some point when you get dissatisfied with me. I don't want to do this for my fellow woman because it's not to my fellow woman, because it's not fair to her. I do not want to be the source of pain and suffering and unhappiness for my fellow woman. So go back and be faithful to your wife. Why don't those women do that? That's why the woman said the enemy of a woman is another woman, because if they were really each other's friends, the way they make noise and join to do all the verbal lynching and the online lynching they do on social media, if they were truly friendly and caring for one another, why would they be the one that will help to break each other's homes? That's why you should know that this woman is correct. The woman, okay, is the enemy of the other woman, with few exceptions. Of course, there are always exceptions, but there are few and far between. We've seen women play this thing, and you see, if you want to talk about men, men are taking each other's wives and all that. Men are very direct and straightforward most times. It's the women, they will come and preach one thing, then they go behind the back and preach something else. You see, men are polygamous, women are not. They are not in the position to be that way, but they are always able to maintain multiple relationships right under the noses of their husbands. Isn't that true? So the true thing is, yes, men play around, but you see, men do not hide their nature. Women are the ones that hide their nature, even to themselves, and then they hurt each other so badly. Like I said, who are the people that steal one another's spouse? It's like that, and ultimately, the lesson we can learn from this is keep your mouth shut. Do not take people into confidence so readily. Keep your own counsel. That is my advice to you, and then you will have a long lasting relationship. Now let me tell you the story of the older woman. She had a relationship in which she got married also very early, about the same age as the first woman I talked about, and had several children, male and female. And also in her own case, she worked. This other woman didn't work, so she worked. This older woman worked, and went on for years. The marriage was beautiful. And then in the later years, when the children were in their teens, they began to have conflict. It wasn't like physical violence, it was more of like emotional abuse, psychological abuse. And the woman was the one that was on the receiving end of that. But she stayed strong, she fought back, but it affected her emotionally. She went into a depression. She suffered for many years. But people were suggesting all kinds of things to her during this period of crisis in her life. The marriage was going on like 30 years, 40 years, and people were telling her, you are suffering too much. Some were even suggesting that she should leave the marriage, that it was too much, because it wasn't like she was getting admitted in the hospital for injuries, but she was experiencing a lot of trauma, emotional and psychological trauma, because of the abusive nature of her husband. But one thing she kept telling everybody, and without exception, she told everybody boldly and bluntly every time, this is my cross, this is my marriage, this is my husband, this is my home. Nobody is going to push me out, and I'm not going to push myself out. I am going to carry this cross till the day I die. This is my cross, I'm going to bear it. It was amazing to people around her that she could live like that. They were telling her she was suffering. And you know the funny thing, today that woman is living her best life. She's living in wealth, she's living in peace, she's living with the same man. You know the funny thing, that aspect of the man that he was abusive, she has been able to meet him halfway and stare him down. She's been able to show him that she's made of sterner stuff. She's fought him to a standstill on it, and the man now knows that he cannot do that to her and get away with it. It's not like she began to physically fight him or attack him. She simply began to call him out for his bad behavior and challenge him at every point. She stayed strong and she grew stronger. She stared him down and she made him feel shame for what he was doing to her. She didn't go to the court of public opinion to get people to come and shout at him. She simply called him out on his bullshit every time he did it, to the point that now, believe me, he's unable to affect her anymore. What she has done is she has outgrown him, outgrown his abuse, and got into a place of strength. And now she's reaping the rewards of her patience and her perseverance. It's amazing because, like I said, people, friends and relatives try to suggest to her all kinds of things she could have done. But she kept telling them, this is my home, this is my marriage, this is my cross, I am going to bear it. Nobody can push me out of my home. Today, she's the matriarch of the family, she's the mother in her home, she's the woman of her house. And believe me, a lot of people that were criticizing her and judging her and telling her she was a fool, today are the ones admiring her and celebrating her. Struggles will come in life, but it is how you respond to those struggles and those tribulations and those visitations of adversity that will determine how your life eventually turns out. I think too many women today are willing to listen to too many advisors outside of themselves, and I think that has been the root cause of the problems they are facing in their homes. They listen to too much advice. I think people need to learn to be managing, to learn to be introspective, to learn to self-counsel, so that they do not take bad counseling. Because you must learn to tune people out. Because when you are too willing to listen to everybody giving you advice about how your personal life should be, you're going to derail. And when you derail, you have no other person to blame except yourself. I do believe these two stories are very instructive, and the lessons they offer are clear for anyone to see. And I hope that you will remember them, and I hope that you remember the words of this young woman that I'm going to play again right now, so you remember her words in parting. All right? I wish you well.